Peace, family. This is your brother Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to night school. I apologize for the awkward delay. There's uh some things missing from the screen here. I'm trying to figure out what's going on. We had some minor technical difficulties, but it's all love. So we're gonna fix it right now, and then I'm gonna do my normal introduction so that y'all don't feel conflicted or confused about what's happening. Because your boy, I'm a very basic dude, man. I'm a very basic dude. So like, if I don't see certain things, I get confused very easy. So I am going to. There we go. There we go. There we go. Everything is back up. The universe is back in order. Things looking normal. Everybody is happy. Let's make it do what it do. We're gonna have a great show tonight, and I want to make sure that y'all know that. So what I'm gonna do, just so because I'm crazy and weird, is I'm going to hit that intro one more time, and I'm going to come back like we always do, so that there's no confusion about what's going on. Stay with me.
Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Peace, family. This is your brother Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to Night School. Every night here on the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel, we hold Night School, where we break down the most interesting subjects, the most contested debates, the most engaged topics going on in the world today. And tonight is absolutely no different. I'm so excited to be here with y'all. It has been a crazy, not just day, not just week, but a crazy month. April has been wild, weather-wise, politically, pop culture, everything, sports. Shout out to the Knicks fans that was talking crazy. And now y'all got a game 6 that y'all wasn't expecting. And y'all got to return to Detroit. All of that is true. I ain't rooting for neither team, but if I had to pick, of course, I'm running with the Pistons in this series. Not because I have a basketball interest in that, but because I just hate the Knicks right now and all their smug faces. And shout out to my brother Tobias Harris over in Detroit. You deserve better than what you got in Philly, and I'm excited to see it right here, right now in Detroit. But anyway, family, welcome to Night School. We got some important stuff to talk about, and I want to know who's here talking about it with me. So hit your name. Give me your name, your city, your state, or country. Let me know where you're writing in from. This is a global classroom. We want to know who's here rocking with us. Tonight, we're going to talk to a journalist, one of the most celebrated journalists, in my estimation, of this generation, a brilliant internationalist, a courageous truth teller, a serious intellectual, professor and journalist. Karen Attiah is here, and she's going to talk about her experience at Columbia University, where her class on race and media was canceled. It's Columbia University, is race, is a Black person, it's somebody who talks about international topics too. I can't be surprised, but I'm nonetheless disturbed. And so we're going to talk to her, not just about what happened, but about what she did about it. Because for me, that's the interesting story. And that's also what makes Professor Attiah so daggone dope. People are saying that they're getting a weird delay. I don't know if that is true. I see one person saying it. Let me know in the comments. Are you getting a delay and a blur? If you are, I may have to reset this thing because I don't want to do a long end. On my end, it looks clear. Okay, there's a delay and okay, it's blurry. Okay, let's see what we can do about that, because that shouldn't be happening. I'm going to step out of the studio and I'll be right back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set a loop in place so that you all know that I'm still here. And I should be back in about 3 or 4 minutes. I'm going to see if I can update our connection, because this happens from time to time, and y'all always tell me, get a new camera, fix your internet. It's none of that. It's just it's a technical issue that we can't do much about. Hang here.
Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official.
All right, family. My deepest apologies for the delay and for the technical difficulty. I had to step out of the room. I had to fix what I think the connection problem was. I think you all should be able to see and hear me. For all you tech gurus who told me I need a better camera, I was trying to tell you it's not the camera. It's a bigger technical issue that we are wrestling with. I apologize for the loop. Once the loop went in, I couldn't stop it. But anyway, we'll talk about that later. We'll do some editing. So hopefully people watch it later won't have to sit through this foolishness. The bigger issue is that we are in a crazy world with crazy things and crazy people, and they are shaping our reality in ways that we didn't expect and ways that we don't deserve. And I wanted to start now that we're up and running. I wanted to start with a very quick overview of what happened today before we get into what I think is a super important story about what's happening at Columbia University on the faculty side. Tonight is really all about Columbia University. Columbia University is, as you know, maybe ground zero for some of the most engaged, complicated, messy, problematic, exciting political conversations and political actions in the world. And I am every day confronted, bombarded even with new information about what's happening there. As you know, Columbia University was a site of the encampments last year as people were protesting Gaza's genocide. People were protesting the genocide in Gaza. Columbia University became not just a space of political resistance and a space of political unrest, but also a site of extraordinary repression. We've seen a university president forced to step down. We've seen faculty challenged. We've seen faculty silenced. We've seen faculty forced into a space of forced retirement. We've seen students harassed and criminalized. We've also seen extraordinary resistance. Some of the most marvelous militancy we've seen come out of Columbia University. And against the backdrop of all of that, people are still trying to figure out what's next. And when you have the Trump administration breathing down the neck of faculty, students, and politicians, it gets even more complicated and even more messy. And I think the biggest story that we've seen, or one of the biggest stories that we've seen, that really tells that that truth about who and what Columbia University is the story of Mohsen Mahdawi. They really tried to deport this man for protesting a war. Columbia University student Mohsen Mahdawi, a Palestinian green card holder, just walked out of ICE custody today after a federal judge thankfully blocked the Trump administration's attempt to detain him and to ship him out. Now, the reason that the administration was attempting to do these acts, which are unlawful, by the way, was they said he was, quote, compromising U.S. foreign policy. And really all he was doing was speaking out against not the war in Gaza, but the war on Gaza, the genocide in Gaza, the war on the Palestinian people. Let that sink in. A college kid protesting the war and the genocide is now seen as the threat. Not the country that funds the genocide, not the country that underwrites the genocide, that gives diplomatic cover to the genocide. No, the person who's pointing it out as a student in a country that loves to romanticize the political college student. They love to be nostalgic about the 60s and the Vietnam War. But now suddenly, when, in real time, when it's happening, being pro-peace is once again a new crime. Mohsen says he was snatched by armed ICE agents at what was supposed to be a citizenship interview. Now, you know, we covered this story on the channel, and it was one of the most absurd, one of the most frustrating, one of the most disappointing situations we've seen to date. He got dragged into detention, and the feds tried to disappear him to Louisiana, just like they've done with other pro-Palestinian voices, other brown voices, other Muslim voices. But this judge was not having it. And so Mohsen Mahdawi is free for now. Take a look at this video. It's right outside of the courthouse. I'm excited. I'm smiling a little bit because organized people defeat organized power. But we never defeat organized power unless we organize and fight and resist. But this is him outside the courthouse. Look at this. This is what victory looks like. Not a full-fledged victory, temporary victory, partial victory, provisional victory. The legions of people out there, this is a reminder that when we fight, we win. We fight, we win. And we never win unless we fight. Look at this guy. Look at this young man. It's so exciting to see him there. Again, there's a lot more fighting to be had. There's a lot more struggle and resistance to be had. But when you see that man outside the courthouse, standing tall, saying to Trump and his crew, I am not afraid of you, it embodies and reflects a level of courage that all of us should aspire to tell the truth, to confront empire, and to fight for freedom, and for all of us to stand in undying, unwavering solidarity with those who are oppressed. Shout out to Mohsen Mahdawi. Shout out to everybody who stood with him and stands with him. The fight's not over, but we're getting signs that we're on the right track. Now, it's time to move on to another story at this fancy institution that they call Columbia University, as Sonia Sanchez would say, in this place called America. I am fascinated by just how foul Columbia University is getting. Anyway, we'll talk about it. Look, Columbia University just canceled a course on race and media. And that is noteworthy on its own. We'll talk about that. But the reason I'm telling this story tonight is because this isn't just a story of cancellation. This is a story of resistance. The professor whose course was canceled decided to take it to the streets. I'm talking about Karen Attiah. She is a journalist. She is an author. She is a former Columbia lecturer. And she says the university dropped her race, media, and international affairs course because they're scared. It wasn't because of enrollment. We know it ain't because of budget. Columbia got more money than God. But they were scared of blowback. They were scared of truth. She says Columbia caved early, putting departments like Middle Eastern, South Asian, and African studies under special watch and axing her class before it could even start. But instead of saying quiet, our sister flipped the whole script. Now she is doing something different. And now this is a reminder to all of us that, you know, we got options. There's always a possibility to do something different. And she did that. She didn't just say, oh, they canceled my class, I'm mad. She didn't just say, oh, they canceled my class, I'm gonna write a strongly worded letter or a fierce tweet. Instead, our sister went to social media and she let us know, thank God she did. And by the way, she did it on Blue Sky, not on Elon's cesspool, among other places. She didn't just do it on Elon's cesspool. She said, latest podcast is out. Get in, everyone. We are going to Resistance Summer School. Thank you to everyone who indicated they would like to take my course on Race, Media, and International Affairs 101. Please fill out this quick interest form to begin to sign up. Now you're saying, how is she teaching the course if they canceled the course? That's a good question. I understand why you're asking it, but here's the answer. She is teaching the course online, open to everybody, not just Columbia students, under a new name. It's now called Resistance Summer School. She says media literacy and truth-telling can't be hostage to institutions that bow to fear. And now she's on to something here, I think. She's got a point. When schools shut down education on race and conversations about power, they're not protecting students. They're protecting the powerful. They're not shielding the vulnerable. They're defending empire. And tonight, here in night school, Professor Attiah joins us to discuss all of this. Welcome to night school, my sister, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing okay, Mark. How are you?
Trying to make the best of things in crazy times.
Yeah.
That's all we can do. So let's start at the beginning here. What happened?
All right. Let's start with, what is now my sort of rebel villain origin story. All right. For broader context, I was a student at Columbia, and specifically Columbia's School of International and Public Affairs 10 years ago. So this institution, this school really shaped, I think, even my decision to go into journalism. I learned human rights, media there. It was there that I really learned about the importance of, solidarity, community building, standing up for human rights, and using media and technology in order to be an advocate. So I've always actually had a special place in my heart for that experience at Columbia. So when the SIPA, which is the graduate school, the International Affairs School, said that they would like for me to come in and teach, and they'd been asking me to do that for a while, I finally said yes. And I finally said yes during the academic year of 2023 to 2024. And I decided, I'd been working on this for syllabus for years. I decided I wanted to teach the education that I never had when I was an international affairs student, which was examining the intersection of race and identity with international affairs, kind of in the sort of W.E.B. Du Bois, the color line, right? And looking at how that intersected with how we basically see the global world order, how the global world order has been in the modern age. And a lot of that has been shaped through constructions of identity and race, which has then been used to justify exploitation, slavery, colonization, all of that, right? And so for me, it was also looking at how how we see the world was a mediated construction, how mass media played into how we see ourselves and who the media tells us is the other, right? So a history course,
And this was in C, but it's funny because I think a lot of us assumed it was in the journalism school.
No, not in the journalism school. I never went to journalism school, contrary to popular belief, but I actually felt it was deeply important for the world's future diplomats, the world's future advocates, the world's future, conflict resolution folks, the world's future economists, frankly, to see how race plays into how we talk about other countries, right? And the history, of that. And again, it was a chance for me to, I think, give back to the school that shaped me, right? So fast forward to spring 2024. Of course, and as you said in your intro and your monologue, I found myself teaching during a time of massive upheaval and turmoil at Columbia with the encampments, with the protests, not just against Israel's genocide, but also specifically about Colombia's involvement in terms of its investments in companies, weapons dealers that had entanglements in Israel. So those who follow me and follow my work, I was outspoken in the Washington Post about, calling a thing, what Israel's assaults on Palestinians. And I've been very vocal about that. Even amongst the, crackdowns on people who are vocal for the freedom of Palestinians. I repeatedly to the administration said, are we good? Are we cool? In terms of my syllabus was unanimously approved, even, while this was all happening, October 7th was all happening. I was like, look, I'm going to do this. I had a unit on Israel, Palestine that I had, decided to include even a year before. So everything was good. I taught the class. It was
no reservations offered, no criticism, no, hey, well, it's approved, but kind of think about yada, yada.
Nothing. They were like, we are so happy to have you. The course had a waiting list, was oversubscribed. Actually, I had to open up more students. And again, I think it just shows a real hunger for, again, the intersection of race and international politics, right?
Yeah.
So the course went well. I had a blast. Again, even though the encampments, the tension was happening, I was told I was one of the few, if maybe the only professor that actively addressed what was happening in Israel and Palestine, because there was just a culture of fear. Anyway, so the course went well. Great reviews. Shout out to my students. I love y'all still. The course ends in May. I got a message in July or August of last year that that was a wrap. I would not be coming back.
And you said this is a note. This isn't a phone call. This is just a. Was it like a?
No,
just a formal letter, like a very.
Right. Yeah. And I pushed to find out why. Budget, was it my stance? Was it some multiple letters to the dean wanting to discuss, and just a lot of foggy. I still am not quite clear on why and how this happens to this day.
So they just said the course is cut.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen. No reason given.
Depending on who I talked to, everyone had a different reason. So
who'd you talk to and what'd they say?
Oh, well, funding came from this place, so we couldn't reroute it, and but then others were like, oh, no, there's funding. What is, that's not true. Rumors, of course, that, Columbia, the dean's unhappy with my stance on Israel. It's one of those things where I think institutionally, and I'm sure this happened, I know this happens to a lot of us in these institutions, where the maddening part of it is you're soft cancel, and there's ambiguity, there's fogginess. No one ever really quite takes responsibility.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're out of the system, right? Someone, or at the very least, they didn't think what I was doing was valuable enough. That's the system, right? Of course, faculty did too, but they didn't think that race and that was important enough despite the massive interest. So to me, the institution said bye-bye, So fast forward again.
There's one more question. Did they tell you that you wouldn't be working there anymore, or did they just say this semester?
They were like, well, let's just see what happens. Let's keep and I think it was heartbreaking, as I said in my post. It was it felt like a very, cruel full circle moment. Again, I was really as a student, I didn't have professors that looked like me. I mean, Columbia, SIPA, the international affairs space, Mark, this, has a real problem when it comes to race, and specifically having Black voices on international affairs, allowing us to be authorities on international politics is something that, and even my career as a journalist is something that is increasingly not just rare, but suppressed,
unwelcomed. Yeah, it's a fascinating thing, and I want to ask you about that in a minute, because that was actually the other thing I wanted to talk to you about. And you're now in a position where you hear this news, you're told no course, and we'll see what the future holds, but yada yada, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You could have just went back to your day job. You got a pretty fancy day job.
I still kept the day job. I was doing the day job. I cared so much about teaching this course. I kept the day job, was commuting every week to New York from DC, and then taking the train back. That's how much I cared about doing this.
That's my point. You could have just went back to the day job. You didn't need this adjunct thing. You could have just kept staying there. But you didn't just throw this opportunity away. You said, I got to do something other than just say, okay, Columbia, see you when I see you.
Of course, because I love teaching. I loved the experience. I was looking forward to a chance, an opportunity to improve my skill at doing this. That was my first time teaching, and it was a great experience. I had students from all over the world, from India, from Japan, from it was from France. It was such a rich experience that even for me personally, for my own spirit and soul, I wanted to be able to have that again. And I know, we all know that these topics of race and international affairs are so timely, so relevant, right? This is a media literacy course. I think as a journalist, I can do my journalism job, but there's something about taking 6 to 10 weeks to intensively be with a group of people, to walk us through, facilitate thinking very deeply about these things in a way that I can't really do, in columns as well. So I just felt that it was kind of a natural complement to, again, facilitating discussion about how we see the world, So it's true. I could have walked away from it, but, honestly, it was, being a professor is my dream. And I just I think a lot of people told me to be quiet, honestly, about the cancellation. I struggled with, I mean, like you said in your intro, I could have gone on a tweet storm and been like, Colombia did this, did this to me. And I was worried, like, gosh, if I went public, I'd never get hired again, not just by Colombia, but I'd be seen as a problem.
Which happens every day.
Yeah, or maybe other adjuncts or other people are like, yeah, we get canceled, like it happens. But so I kept quiet. I think out of maybe a bit of fear, a bit of okay, what am I going to do next? But it wasn't until I started seeing Colombia as an institution really caving to the Trump administration's demands, and for me, like you said, it was when I saw the sort of imposition of a receivership on ethnic studies like Middle East.
So let's break that down a little bit, because I think that's where some people who aren't inside of our world don't understand exactly what happened here. There's the universities doing their thing,
right,
whether it's repressing free speech, whether it's canceling courses, all the things.
Right.
And a lot of people are thinking about this purely as the decision of conservative institutions to silence things that contradict their values or beliefs or interests. And that's not untrue. But what I'm hearing you say quite accurately is that there's a bigger play here. There's a bigger power dynamic and arrangement that's happening that needs to be taken seriously as well, that starts at some level at the Trump administration. So what does Trump have to do with any of this?
Right. So again, for those who've been following the saga of the campus protests, Colombia, as you said in your intro, is ground zero, not just for the protests, the encampments. Again, I mean, those encampments, that even I took time to see myself, those encampments sparked probably one of the largest historical campus protests or encampments all over the country. So understand and seeing that then started to be used as a justification, even during the Biden administration, obviously, as a justification to crack down on campus protests, and not just campus protests, but writ large, sort of pro-Palestinian, anti-genocide protests around the country and even around the world, I would argue. So fast forward, and we saw, the forced congressional testimonies of the university president, Columbia University President Manoush Shafik. So the pressure was starting. So fast forward to the Trump administration, and they took it 10 steps further and threatened Colombia with withholding $400 million of federal funding. So, basically a shakedown and holding Colombia hostage unless it met certain demands about diversity, anti-Semitism, increasing campus militarization, and yes, this receivership, oversight, this colonial, watch of the ethnics.
Right.
We're going to monitor the natives and make sure that they're not spreading. And again, that's more so at the undergrad level. But I think the message that sends is that, again, if you are teaching non-white studies, you are to be monitored and surveilled.
Right.
And to me, that was an environment that I already sort of felt a little bit of pressure about teaching about something that was explicitly about race. Yeah. I mean, but the Trump administration took things, to a 10. And we saw that Colombia was one of the first preemptively, I would say, not even I would say, but preemptively, okay, all right, cool. Here's the ethics. Leave us alone.
I think that's what's fascinated me the most. Harvard hasn't been much better. I mean, these behemoth universities, I think Columbia's endowment is 18 billion, I believe. Harvard's is 40 or 50 billion. These are institutions that don't need anything, right? They're not fighting for prestige. They're not fighting for power. They're not fighting for money. Why are they capitulating so easily? It's not just they selling out. They're selling out cheap.
Right. Well, and I think one thing people need to understand about caving in that way was that the reporting at the time was that the Trump administration said these were just preconditions to us to even come to the table, and maybe we will reconsider, right? So this wasn't even guaranteed that their money would be safe.
Right.
Right.
It was just to get to the table. And just an addendum to what you said, for those out there who aren't in the conversation here in night school, the provisions around anti-Semitism weren't simply don't be anti-Semitic. They weren't simply make sure there's not a climate of anti-Semitism on campus. It wasn't just address and deal with and fix and repair anti-Semitism on campus. That would all be quite reasonable. But in line with the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism, in line with the right sort of appropriation of that discourse, of the Zionist movement's appropriation of that discourse, a lot of the conversation has become any criticism of Israel has become has been viewed as anti-Semitic as such. Any critique of Israel, any discussion of certain things. And so in order to meet the Trump administration standards, you almost have to silence any pro-Palestinian voice. You have to stop any Israel critique or any dissent from Netanyahu's foreign policy or domestic policy. So all of this stuff is part of the mix of what people have to capitulate to. And again, it's also, as Karen said, like, look, you got to oversee the ethnics. All these black and brown departments, African studies, Middle Eastern studies, all this stuff, right? Y'all got to watch them. You got to be careful with them. You have to at times silence them or constrain them. This is a bizarre moment. Is there any moment that you know of, you could think of in recent history that's been like this? And certainly, I mean, this just seems extreme even for the right.
Yeah, it's just so explicit. I wasn't prepared for that. Obviously we knew the rhetoric coming from the president himself, but to be so bold as to even consider that would be an option that these so-called liberal institutions would even consider, it says a lot about so-called liberal institutions, right? Being not just complicit, but accomplices to empire, to segregation, to dehumanizing, those of us in general from the global South. I'm kind of like, as someone who's an African, my parents are African immigrants. The African Studies Department is like, how'd we get it?
Right.
Right. But it's really chilling. And I think that's why I decided, I got to liberate my work from this environment, or to just say, like, and it's bigger than Columbia, but I think the bigger picture is, why should there's plenty to be said about those who might decide to go back and teach at these institutions anyway, even, with that fear, chilling tension. That's just not the greatest feeling to have in an environment. And I think I just decided I just want to be free of that, even if, and I still love what Columbia was supposed to represent, and I still think those students should be served. I still think that this is something that should be discussed in, those hallowed halls. But I think for me, for right now, this moment right now, this is, I believe, a not just a history course, but a media literacy course. And I just felt, I think for me, as a human being, I just felt like I wanted to do something to help. And why should, even though my course was canceled institutionally, I'm like, why do I need those gatekeepers or permission to like gather people under a tree and talk to them about what I know? I think it came down to that.
So then you said, I'm going to open this up to the world. I'm going to make this I'm going to place this on an online platform. Where'd you put it?
So I set it on Substack. So I have a podcast on Substack, and I'll be doing it on Zoom largely, and then I'll have my plan. My hope is to have an in-person, like teach in person, and then also be able to broadcast that on Zoom. And yeah, I put out kind of just like you said, a general interest forum. Would anybody be interested in it? And within a day, I had 1,000 responses.
Which is insane.
Of people who said, yes, please. And not just yes, please, but can I take it with my family? Can I help support other students to also take it? I'm willing to pay for other people to join your class. And, it was, of course, there's a part of me that, maybe feels satisfied that pulling the Uno reversed.
Yes.
But it just speaks to a lot of things. I think it speaks to, yes, of course, the anger at Columbia for the capitulation, for how it's been treating students, for how it's been treating faculty, for how it has, in this moment at least, not lived up to its reputation or even its own branding of being the activist Ivy.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I remember when I taught at the Teachers College over there, it was always like, oh, they hired another crazy lefty in that community. Oh, there's another, and I think people sometimes conflate the relative progressivism of some of the students with the institutional identity. You see the same thing at Berkeley, right? There's tons of progressive students in Berkeley campus, but the Cal system more broadly, and even the Berkeley administration, isn't always so progressive. In fact, we see the opposite. And Swarthmore was a little different, but in general, a lot of these places that are known as progressive are very different in practice or very different structurally. And so, I fall into that trap of being like, oh, Columbia will be fine. They're not putting up with that foolishness. And then you look up, and what do you know? Foolishness.
Yeah.
So you decided to have the course online. Within 2 days, you sold out, or you filled up the course.
Yeah.
It's not, they'll charge for it. How many people are in the class now?
We actually, in fact, I gotta hit the Excel right after this. But we're looking at plus or minus 500 students. And I'll have like a sliding scale. Also, it was just sort of an experiment in, jailbreaking a bit of the system, right? Because Columbia, and these higher education institutions, they're really expensive. It's really expensive to attend. Not just expensive, but people end up in lifelong crippling debt from trying to get, an education. So for me, I think part of it was, I wanted to, of course, like I spent a lot of time on this, I was like, I want to be somewhat compensated for, my time, but also I, and this, and I think it's something that people don't like to talk about, but adjuncts get paid poverty wages.
Yes.
And have no security, a lot of times no benefits. And then on the flip side, those students are ending up paying like tens and tens of thousands of dollars, per semester, and ending up in debt for a job market that, in a lot of times, cannot absorb them.
Like the new cohort of graduates, right? Columbia students turn out just fine. The Ivies in general, they do just fine, but they're often underpaid relative to what they put in. And and these other institutions, and you went to Northwestern and Columbia, and you have the fancy pedigree, and I'm sure you have lots of colleagues, lots of classmates who didn't get what they were promised.
Right.
Now that you're off of Columbia University's sort of payroll for the moment, and the course has become Resistance Summer School, are you getting more radical in the syllabus, or is it kind of staying the same because it was enough? It did what it needed to do already.
Yeah, I think it did what it needed to do. I think the only thing about it is just I felt pretty free to say what I wanted to say, and like I said, I got no complaints or anything like that. I think, like I said, for the most part, it's more so that I would adapt my syllabus to the current events.
Political moment,
and,
yeah.
You know, perhaps then I'd be teaching about Colombia putting the ethnics under colonial surveillance, right? What does that say about international relations and international affairs? You know, and we'd be able to now look at the trajectory of campus protests and the attacks on DAI. We like Columbia has provided me course material that I would update, you know, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it'll be, and I think for me, it's just this, people are hungry for knowledge and people
Yes.
are hungry for, and again, this is a course that Columbia unanimously approved. And I just said, hey, you guys, you can have access to this at like, not just a fraction of the price, but even if you, and I, as low as just like $100, right? For 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm teaching the same thing that I taught the fancy kids. Everybody should to have, if you want, all you need to do is bring that. But what I loved about it is, I guess I call it resistance, you know, summer school. It just kind of came to mind because I guess, yeah, it's rebelling against not just like Columbia's actions in, not just, and it's not about me at this point, like, you know, it's not about me complaining about what they did. In fact, it was a blessing in a way, because at least the time that I got to teach last year, I got to see what it looked like to have community learning in those encampments.
Yes.
Time in those encampments. Didn't you? Weren't you?
Yeah, I went to the encampments on Penn campus and on Columbia campus.
Right.
And, you know, what I tried to do there and what I saw a lot of people doing there, you know, you do the inspirational yapping, but there's also like serious pedagogy happening. There's serious engaged political education happening. It's not just, you know, getting people to stand to it. You can't be out there for weeks at a time just giving rally speeches, right?
Right.
You know, I saw people like Norman Finkelstein go there and actually do deep dives. And even when the big names didn't come,
right,
and they were often there, you saw real engaged teaching happening day to day, moment to moment, hour to hour, in big pockets and in small pockets. It was one of the most beautiful things about the encampment, to be honest, for me. Exactly.
And that stuck with me, that what was actually happening in those encampments were A, so different than what was being portrayed in the media, and B, were real living examples of community and education as not just resistance, but being able to, yes, sustain the students so that they could be sustained in their activism, so that they could stay out in those encampments. They weren't interrupting their education. In fact, they too, to an extent, were getting access to scholars that maybe they wouldn't have, you know, in their normal curriculum, right? And so I saw that. I saw students setting up, you know, first aid tents and wellness centers in the People's Library, the People's University. And as you said, I was like, this is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen, this like interfaith community. And again, this is before, I think this might have been, I think Columbia had locked things down a bit more. But I think that's a lot of that. That's kind of what inspired me to do this. And especially as the Trump administration has, you know, cracked down so much on academic freedom, and we see these institutions caving. To me, this is the only thing that made sense to do, was to follow that model that I learned at Columbia last year, outside the classroom, of course, outside permission, but that model of, you know, we're going to take it to the people, we're going to take it to the streets, was what inspired me. So, yeah.
As you're talking, I'm sitting here reading all the comments about your course, about you, about what you represent, and people are just genuinely inspired by everything you're doing. Do you think, and you're too humble to say that you're starting a trend, but this is one of the most high profile examples of a trend, I'll say. Do you think we're turning in a direction that will, I won't say make universities unnecessary, because I don't think that necessarily, but do you think we're creating space for alternatives for legitimizing sort of spaces of knowledge production and education outside the university? Like, will we see a lot more of these happen? Not just the way they always have. You know, there's always been radical groups here, political education, at this bookstore, at this collective, at this co-op. But in the age of the internet, suddenly much more people have access to these spaces and these conversations. Many more people know that this is happening.
Mm.
Are you seeing a turn? Is this a fad? Is this something that UBC will build on? What do you anticipate?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I'm not the first. I mean, I know that there was, and I'm forgetting the. I know there was in Florida, a professor, FIU, I believe, who started teaching his students under a tree after the state started cracking down on education about race. I've seen, and these are just lower profile cases in Tulsa, academics taking. Tulsa, Oklahoma, taking their education about the Tulsa race massacre to community centers, right? After the states, started cracking down on CRT. So yeah, perhaps, my case, sure, I have a public profile. Columbia is very much in the news. I guess I feel a bit, I don't know. I'm glad people are inspired. I don't know whether there's like some ancestral signal. I really wasn't thinking very deeply about it all. I was just kind of like, I don't know. It'd be nice to have a side gig,
Right?
And I could do this during the summer. I already have the material. I just need to sort of dust it off. And honestly, I would have been happy if like 50 people. That's what was in my head. I was like, man, if I could get to 50 people, that'd be cool.
50 people.
Yeah. I was like, okay, 50 people would be cool. And then maybe because my original class was 20, if I got like 30, I'm like, that would be awesome. And then
You 10 times your wildest dreams.
Yeah. So and honestly, again, I don't really think what I'm doing, it's not revolutionary. We know that Black professors, Jewish professors, professors around the world in times of repression have always gone underground to still continue to teach when the institutions have barred them, have always gone around, right?
Yeah.
And so I just feel like, maybe physically, I'm not going to an institution, but what are institutions but a groups of people who decide to share knowledge and resources?
Yeah.
Like, what are institutions but just communities? I think Columbia could be argued as more of a hedge fund that happens to have a little bit of education on the side.
I think that's more active. Yeah. I think that's right.
But I think, and I know I have, in times of active repression, community is so important. We cannot look to politicians. We cannot look to institutions to save us. And I've been preaching that for a long time, but also kind of struggling with like, well, what does that mean for me to walk this walk?
Yeah.
And not just talk the talk on my socials. And so for me, I was like, okay, this is what I can do. I don't need permission from anyone, actually, to gather people. And it was just as simple as that. I just want to teach. And why should there be a barrier between someone who wants to teach and talk to people and people who want to learn and listen? Like, there's a bigger question of the ways that our systems, whether it's even journalism to an extent, sometimes, not just sometimes, but how institutions create these artificial barriers between us and then force us to go through all these gatekeepers and pay a lot of money to get access. And I guess maybe people feel that I don't have anything to prove anymore. I've been to Columbia. I've done all the high level.
All the things.
Yeah, I've done, I've done all the things. I've have all the fancy, sparkly names. Now it's like we're in a crisis moment now. We don't have time to be like, well, maybe they'll come back. Like, I don't know. I just felt the urgency of the moment to do it now. Never let universities get in the way of education.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Before you go, I just have a quick question, really two quick questions, but one is a serious one. And that is about your role as a sort of journalist who covers international matters.
Mhm.
There's a way that we're critiqued for our positions, for our ideas, etc., like everybody else. But there's another way that Black journalists, Black critics, Black scholars, anyone who's looking at something outside the context of Black America, are deemed almost ineligible for the conversation. It begins from a place of presuming we don't know enough, or that it's simply not our place to be talking about that stuff. You are someone who deals with global affairs. You're someone who's been writing about Africa, the Middle East. You've been in general. You've been someone who is an internationalist by interest and by training. Why do we get Black folk? Why is it so hard for us?
Because we've always been a threat to the system, right? I mean, I think a lot of, and I've written about this, that specifically Black international in the modern age, internationalism in the modern age, has been under direct and dangerous attacks, whether it's been anti-colonial movements that have always been, linking between America and the continent, whether it has, even Black and Palestinian, solidarity is not new, right? Thinking about the things that have created the most sort of agitations and threats to empire, I would argue, the civil rights movements in America, upending the racial caste system in this country, which again had international ties, the civil rights leaders in the US learning from the anti-colonial struggles, right? The anti-apartheid struggles, which inspired the entire world's, right, Black internationalists. So I've always, any major change has required to help oppressed minorities has always had an element of trans-border solidarities and networks and pressures and strategies. And so it's something that, you can, Henry Kissinger was very aware of.
Oh, yeah.
And specifically tried to break Black international. This is why I do believe that there's been an intense assault on South Africa from not just the Trump administration, but even, during the Biden administration, for its role in advocating for Palestinians at the international criminal court level, right?
Yeah.
So much so that the US was attempting to attack economic ties and downgrade its relationship with South Africa, over this. So it's all like connected. And I think for me, as someone who just believes that we're not all free until everyone is free, that includes, Black and Palestinian solidarity. I will never forget, it was an early time in my career watching my Black colleagues getting tear gassed in Ferguson.
Oh, yeah.
Palestinian.
I was one of them.
Yes, exactly. You know this. You were one. Yeah. And Palestinians sending tips on how to deal with the tear gas that was being made in America, because they've been tear gassed by it too, right? And so there's so many links. Angela Davis, in her book, talking about these linkages between the Palestinians' struggle for freedom and how Black people recognize that Palestinians, and this is the title of a Harvard paper, are one of the last kind of living examples of living under the colonial condition, right? There's a reason why that is, and seeing what is apartheid, that they're still living under. And I think they're afraid because we have broken these systems before, right? And so it's notable to me, and it's gotten lost to an extent because, of course, as you said, they are disappearing actual Palestinians in America. But the canaries in the coal mine, for the first ones who were deposed, criminalized, I mean, of course, Claudine Gay, president of Harvard, who lost her seat, but it was a Harvard divinity student, divinity school student, who is Ghanaian, who was kicked out of housing, criminalized for trying to protect other pro-Palestinian protesters.
Right.
That was actually one of the first cases of criminalizing pro-Palestinian protests at Cornell. Mamadou Tall, another student from Africa, one of the leaders of those protests, was targeted with deportation from Cornell quite like earlier on, before we were seeing this wave. Yeah. And just a few weeks ago, he said, you know what, I'm still going to speak out, but I'm not going to fight this. I'm going back. He decided to leave because the pressure was so much. So I just say that all to say, and it's not to say that those who are targeted, who are Black, are more, victims than what is happening now with Mahmoud Khalil and all that. But it's just to say that again, this is my argument, that Black internationalists usually are the canaries in the coal mine for how they're going to crack down on everybody else.
Yes.
Everyone else.
Yep.
So it's just very much, that's why I like to try to make these connections, not just make the connections, but to state for the record, even as a journalist, what is happening and how. And to your point, when people say, Black people, you don't know anything about international affairs, stay in your lane.
Right.
I believe that, I'm not going to say that just because you're Black, you're right all the time, but it's a threat because we know.
Right.
Right. James Baldwin, even people should go back and read James Baldwin on Palestine. James Baldwin called it in the 70s or 60s. We have commented on the oppression of Palestinians for a long time. Yeah. So to me, there's a reason why they don't want us in these spaces, but we're going to do it anyway, however we can. And again, I just feel,
I laugh when you said we sort of know. In 1988, July, I think it was 19th of 1988, Jesse Jackson, in his second run for president, which was a historic run, not just because he was a Black man running for president, which is sort of how we reduce it sometimes, but because it was a fairly successful run. Jesse Jackson was asked sort of to talk about foreign policy, and he said, people don't understand the relationship between. I was trying to see if I could pull his speech up to quote it for him, because I hate if I quote Jesse Jackson wrong, he's gonna get mad at me. But he basically was talking about the relationship. Let me see, he came here. I'm gonna pull it up so y'all, so Rand don't get mad at me. Shout out to Jesse Jackson. I don't see it, but oh yeah, here it is. Jesse Jackson in his speech said that this is the 84 speech. He said, what do Blacks know? He said, all this talk about qualifications. What do Blacks know about foreign policy? It's an insult. I was 3 years old. I came into my consciousness. My daddy was coming home from the war. Foreign policy. If he was so dumb, how'd he get over there and get back? If he didn't know foreign policy, why'd they give him a gun? And when they gave it to him, he knew which way to shoot. We know foreign policy. When you buy Honda and Toyota, that's foreign policy. Russian vodka, that's foreign policy. Panasonic and Sony, that's foreign policy. Mercedes-Benz, that's foreign policy. And of course, he's Jesse Jackson. So he said, and a matter of fact, we came here on a foreign policy.
That part.
And I've always been fascinated by that. And I don't want to oversimplify foreign policy, but there is a way that people discount the relationship between our lived experiences here and their relationship to all sorts of political arrangements, institutional arrangements, etc. globally. And that there's a unique insight that a Black person may have about that. And not just, and that doesn't mean, for y'all go off on me now, it doesn't mean that being Black just makes you wise on foreign policy, right? These people, we went to school, we studied, we worked hard, we did the same thing everyone else did. But we also have a vantage point, like everyone else does, that may make us interesting and useful and thoughtful on these areas. In addition to the fact that we can study China like everybody else. We can study Israel or Jordan or Djibouti or Cambodia or Mexico like everybody else. Like we can do that, and we do that. So take that seriously. But the last thing I got, actually, I promise, I know you got to go. I know you got to go.
Well, can I make one quick note to that?
Please do your thing.
And I put this in a piece because I think, especially, when October 7th happened, there was a lot of pushback. This has nothing to do with race. This has nothing to do with, and which is basically like, Black people, shut up.
Yep.
You don't know what you're talking about.
This ain't your department.
Yeah, but also, this sense of, well, the Black, Jewish alliance, and that you guys are betraying us by not standing for, not supporting genocide. And I went back to, and this is actually, you can look this up on the sort of the U.S. Holocaust memorial sites, where they have archives of the Black press in the, let's say, like late 1920s, early 1930s, I believe, where the Black press was watching what was happening in Germany and saying that we as Black folk need to go and defeat what's happening in Germany. And because we see how this is similar to what we dealt with in the South, right? Understanding that the liberation of and fighting for the freedom of Jewish people was inherently linked to fighting against racism, segregation, and Jim Crow in the US, right? So that's just something that when I found that for my own research, I was like, whoa, why do we get taught this? And again, it speaks to this, as you talk about that, well, Black people don't discuss foreign policy. Yes, they have.
Right.
They not just discuss foreign policy, but went to war for that, died.
We died
for that.
Yeah.
In not just in the hopes that would create a freer America writ large for everyone else.
I think people underestimate how extraordinary a moral achievement that is in the midst of living in an apartheid state, to fight for the soul and character of that very state, to invest hope and possibility. My uncles, my father's brothers, my dad was the youngest. Everyone else was eligible for World War II and fought. Well, one of them did, one didn't, but they were in World War II and they came home to the same American South that didn't welcome them as citizens. My Uncle Bobby, after whom my bookstore is named, he fought in World War II. He rode behind Nazi POWs on the train ride back. And Black people have never stopped believing. Black people came out of enslavement and joined the military.
Right.
Like there's such a deep investment in this place that I think is underestimated. But also those sacrifices of war, those sacrifices of committing to this empire, they come with more than just disappointment. They come with deep wisdom and knowledge, and a perspective that may shape and shift how we understand foreign policy. That said, I got an image I want to show you, and I need your take on this. I need your, just say whatever you need to say.
Okay.
And we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Tell people what that is.
Those are
in case you couldn't get any more interesting.
Those are that is the silver medal that I won in 2021 at the USA Muay Thai Open tournament. For those who don't know and don't follow me on social media, I'm not only a journalist, I'm an avid Muay Thai practitioner, fighter. I've done a few fights. I decided, Yeah, that's me. Hi.
That's a hard body photo right there.
Hey, what's up? Hello. That was 20 or 30 pounds ago. But yeah, that was right. My fighter photos right before my first fight in Arizona in 2021. So
and you were serious. I mean, I called, just so y'all know, I called her tonight about a half hour before we were supposed to start the interview. And most people are like on the couch, like watching like Abbott Elementary or eating Cheetos or something. She's in the gym.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's there's a whole lot to say that I believe in terms of like these fights that we talk about, these fights that to belong, these fights to, say what we want to say. And then I guess my training, it helps reinforce having kind of the mental fortitude to like keep going.
Yeah.
It's also sometimes just nice to punch people in the face in a legal way that's not gonna have me, in somebody's courtroom. But it's something I love to do. I've learned a lot.
So you gotta tell us a little bit about this, because in night school we often only talk about politics and heavy stuff, and we do some music, pop culture stuff, but rarely this. So first, how did you get involved in Muay Thai? And I think some people here don't know exactly what Muay Thai is, the art of 8 limbs. Talk to us about what Muay Thai is, maybe real fast. I don't want, like, you don't have to do like an academic thing, just like literally what is it and how'd you get involved?
Right. So I actually started with boxing like when I was in grad school. So I wanted to go to the Golden Gloves. I was even while I was at SIPA, while I was at Columbia, I was boxing in the Bronx. I was training like 4 days a week. Like I really was like, I'm trying to box somebody's daughter. Like, so Muay Thai basically is it is similar to kickboxing. I know Muay Thai practitioners, y'all hate saying that, but it is what it is. You can.
You're the first one I've ever heard say that. Everybody, it's not kickboxing.
I know, but it is. You can punch, you can kick, you can use your elbows, knees, and then stand-up grappling. So anybody who watches MMA, UFC, a lot of times the foundation for the stand-up striking that they're doing is Muay Thai kickboxing, and it is considered one of the most brutal sports out there. But I also think it's a beautiful sport. Like it's also there's a lot of symbolism in it. There's a lot of spirituality, honestly, in it. And for me, the discipline of it and I think also as a woman to learn how to cultivate your own power. There's just something that you just are different when you're like, nobody can F with me. Like, you know,
do you feel like that? Like when you started training, when did you first feel like, one, like I know what I'm doing here? I feel like I'm good.
I feel like I'm good. I mean, I think when I was in fight camp, I mean, I won't say it was an accident, but I knocked out my training partner, and it was just, the opening was there and my training just kicked in.
It's the right cross?
It was a right hook. Yeah.
Ooh,
I'm sorry. I'm still sorry. I think that was when I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. All right. I have now become a weapon. Unfortunately, my first fight, I lost in a controversial
decision, right? Yes.
Decision. It was controversial. But I guess I decided after that, I was like, I will never lose in the clinch again. So like, I put on a good amount of muscle after that. I'm getting back into training. But I think for me, martial arts and I practiced, Brazilian jiu-jitsu as well. Although
what level are you now?
I'm not like, I'm still a white belt. I'm still shark food. But I think there is something about, and when we talk about knowledge and when we talk about learning, I think it allows your brain to think differently and strategically in a different way. And I just think and I just love the community of it. I've met some of my best friends. I've become a better person because of the training. It doesn't matter if you're a banker, if you are a construction worker, if you're a mechanic. I'm just like, how's your left hook?
Right.
Right. There's an equalizing like factor to it all. And I've just met the most incredible people. I've done seminars. I love following female fighters. There aren't a whole lot of Black Muay Thai fighters, or even, I love following Black women who are doing this. And there's just something to being able to, especially as a woman, to be allowed to feel strong and powerful and to like allow yourself to turn on the kill switch. So yes, I'm nice and smiley, but like I'm malevolent in the ring.
And they get these hands and feet in the ring, and it's a different person.
But it also teaches you how to manage your emotions, how to, very few people, not every, it's a great sport. Even if you just wanted to lose weight and get in shape and just have a chance to start, like most people never get into the ring. It's something like less than 2% of people ever actually step into the ring. But I guess I'm just not somebody who does anything halfway.
Right.
I'm just kind of like, if I'm gonna do it, I'm like, I want to test myself. And that's just kind of who I am as a person. But I love it. It grounds me and it gives me a discipline to my life that has been very helpful. And like I said, again, having even the strength and courage to maybe take some of the stands that I've had. There's something about when you train, even if you're going to, especially if you decide to fight. And one of my training partners said this is like, yes, there's a referee, there's going to be, first aid, all that. It's still a sport. It's not war. Yes. But there's something that you have to accept that I could get hurt. I could lose. I could be embarrassed in front of my friends and loved ones.
Yeah. You could be on the business end of that right hook.
Right. But there's something about that is said, I'm willing to sacrifice and risk to become a better person and to respect the other person who has also decided, and probably is just as scared and nervous, has also decided to enter in with you for those 3 2-minute rounds. And I don't know, I'm just a nerd about it. I just think it's like, it's almost spiritual, right? To fight and to even like prepare for that. And you just learn about who you are under pressure. And I just find it an interesting challenge and part of my life. And, ain't nobody gonna fuck with me.
Yeah, they don't want those problems. I have on the bottom screen doing Muay Thai after 35, and the reason is because I was really thinking about doing it, about what it means to do it after 40, because I'm 46, but you're not 40. So I did. So I'm
close.
But I picked I picked a different number. 35 seemed nice and round. And the reason I ask is because for so many people who want to do martial arts, whether it's BJJ, whether it's Muay Thai, whether it's judo, taekwondo, whatever, right? There's a sense that it's a young person's sport, and these legs ain't getting up like they used to. No head kick is ever happening. I'd be lucky if I can get to somebody's shins. I got access to fewer limbs. The joints, the recovery time, reaction time when you're actually in the ring. That all of these things are you don't get better, right? You can get better while training, but I mean, no one says, you know what, I'm 50, I'm so much better prepared for sports than I was when I was 30, right? Every year it's more of a battle. Yeah. And so I say that just to say it's hard. What advice, what insights do you have for people who are saying, look, I'd like to do this, or I'd like to start doing it again, but I'm afraid that I ain't got it anymore. I'm in my career, I'm grown, I ain't got time for this. Well, I don't have the capacity for this.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, nobody has to go to the lengths and to that I did. I mean, I think you are a Muay Thai practitioner if you're showing up on Saturdays and Weekend Warrior and hitting pads and doing. My coaches have always said, do what you can. Right? And I think, obviously for me, I've been active my whole life, like just in the gym. So I think over time, that habit, it's more about, you know, I've just been more or less like consistent about being active. But I think as I get older, I'm a lot more wise about how I train. Like I'm not, I really take recovery seriously. In fact, after this, I'm gonna be in my Epsom salt bath. Like I don't push myself like crazy. And I think it's not just that, but as time goes on, coaches are getting wiser also about how to train, and realizing like, okay, to fight, you don't need to like hard spar and go 110% every single time you're sparring, right? We're getting better about understanding what the body needs in terms of nutrition. I learned a lot about nutrition. And I think the way people should think about it is you have to learn your responsibility is to learn your own body and what you need and your own like limits and your own, and to yes, train like past them. But I think as you get older, you're just a bit more wise. Frankly, I feel like I'm in better shape than I was in my 20s. And I also actually, I think, credit that a lot to resistance training as a woman as well. But, you know, I think people have to understand when they're like, well, I can't do that. I can't do that. And actually, you know, sometimes like that's okay. Do what you can. You're still a practitioner. Like it's to think about it in a way of being curious about what you can do. And I find it interesting because it's also, you know, and I like I said, I take more time stretching. I take more time resting to an extent.
How many days a week do you train?
So right now I'm like more so focused on resistance training. When I was training, I think a good way to start is to at least try to commit to at least twice a week, like to start out with. Beyond that, at least twice a week. Because then there's also like, again, I trained to fight. There's a difference between, and it's not always the same. You can be a great martial artist without ever being a fighter, right? You can focus on, there are times where you know, especially if I'm getting ready for a fight and I'm focusing on cardio, I'm running, like at the height of my fight training, I was training 3 hours a day, 6 days a week. That was a lot.
That's a whole lot.
But nobody has to do that. No one has to get into that ring in order to get, you know, the benefits. And I think a lot of times it's also about like learning the mechanics of it. I love technique days. Like I love just like, you know, the Bruce Lee, like throwing a kick as many times as you can, because I'm like, I want to feel how my body can generate power, right? And so I guess I would look at it as like, you know, my coach says, my new coach says, because sometimes I get that way. I'm like, man, I'm getting older, like, but my performance in the ring, I can hang with 20-year-olds. And he says, it's not about how old you are. It's about how many fights you got left in you. And that's a matter of your heart and your willingness to train. It's not like, I think we underestimate what we're capable of doing. And I'm not telling people to train through injury. Don't hurt yourself. Be smart. If you're training, you know, and you've broken something, you're just not being smart. But what I've learned is just at least committing to being consistent about it and see how you feel. Do you like it? Are you noticing that you're getting better? And then even on the days where I've had to train myself, just like work, just like writing, just like when I'm trying to write a book and I don't feel like showing up to that page. Yeah. I show up, even if it sucks, even if I'm tired, I show up. And there's just, to me, it translates into so much else in my life. So what I would suggest to people is to give it a shot. Give it a shot. What's the worst? Are you afraid of being, you know, embarrassed? I mean, there's footage of me like screaming and looking crazy on the internet doing movies.
I think people aren't worried about that. I think people are worried about footage of them either
Mm.
looking terrible or of them getting knocked out?
Most people are not fighting, are not even sparring. You don't have to do all of that to
Right.
understand the beauty of it. There's so much about, again, like I said, the community. And I swear that, Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, again, there's something about it that helps me think better because it trains your brain, especially I think as we get older, that we know that the brain starts to kind of, in older age, like just things slow down. I believe that this helps you, trains you how to think in a different way. We prioritize so much intellectual knowledge and all of that, but there's something that is very profound about learning what your body can do. Again, especially as a woman, when we're not taught to connect with our power outside of, can you give birth? Can we serve men? Can we, there's something for me, I think that felt very liberating about being like, how fucking strong and badass can I get? And giving myself the permission to not apologize for landing a nice elbow, right? Like I had to train myself, sometimes when I was like, oh my gosh, I hit you. And they were like, that's what you're supposed to do. You're doing your job. Keep going. And so I think especially for women, especially for Black women, I get this, and kind of full circle to our conversation about the community training. We know that the Black Panthers, as part of their education, saw self-defense as a really important part of education, right?
Yeah.
And I'm noticing a lot of people, and it's very interesting, a lot of people who now somehow feel like, I just feel like I need to train. I don't know. I feel like I need to get into martial arts. I feel like I need to weight train, especially for women, right? Because we're seeing the sort of toxicity of like this masculine, like this wave, right-wing wave of trying to put us back in the kitchen and reduce our bodily autonomy. There are a few things that are as empowering, the pleasure even of discovering your own power as a woman that you can generate, that like the mechanics of how I can throw like a kick. and yeah, someone is saying it's for women, it's not just a nice to have. We need that bone density as we grow older. Like for me, I'm also thinking about, I'm going to train as much as I can because there's going to come a point in my life where I can't anymore. And I'm trying to be as independent as I'm trying to stay out the nursing home for as long as I can.
Well, that goes a long way. I know, I talk to a lot of people who do like karate and taekwondo and they talk about, particularly older people in their 60s and 70s who say like their cholesterol, their blood pressure, all that stuff stays down simply through their practice. And some people don't love the treadmill. Some people don't love, or some people feel like their bodies can't do basketball at 65, which makes sense. I ruptured my Achilles 3 years ago. So, so there's a way that like you realize our bodies aren't meant to do that for so long, but golf ain't gonna get your heart rate up. So, they found they drifted toward, I know people who did Aikido, judo, jiu-jitsu, all the things later in life, and they seem to be really reaping the benefits of it mentally, but also physically. And that's super encouraging. And so when I didn't know that, I knew you were a weight trainer. I knew you were a weightlifter, and I don't think I realized though that you, until very recently, maybe the last few months, that you were doing Muay Thai, and that you were, now I'm hearing other stuff too. I mean, that's so encouraging. That's so inspirational. Will there be another fight coming up anytime soon?
Right now, I've been focusing on, I want to do a figure competition because like I got pretty jacked. So, but that sort of training, but I'm integrating, at least, keeping up with Muay Thai. So once I finish that competition, hopefully, and well, now that I have my resistance summer school, that's changed my plans, but I'll figure it out.
It's a whole other kind of resistance training.
Yeah, right. I do want to go to the ring because, like, again, like how I said, I don't do things halfway. I can't go out like that with a split decision loss. The real fight is not losing. The real fight is getting back up and trying again. And I don't think I would really forgive myself if I didn't try. And I might be slower, and I've accepted that I might, not do it, but I just feel in my spirit, I'm like, man, I got to try. So stay tuned. I will let y'all know when I have a fight. I have a new coach out here in Falls Church, Virginia, Smooth Moves Boxing. Shout out to Nathan. Yeah, I'm gonna dance with someone's daughter again. That's my thing.
I love it. 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 Kat, thank you.
And one quick thing, and again, and I'd love to do more on this. I obviously, probably people can tell, I'm very passionate about martial arts and physical fitness, also because I do believe the right has co-opted these spaces to spread a lot of really toxic ideologies. So my dream is also to gather progressive, people who are just interested in, again, physical education, because I think physical education is also political.
For sure.
And to, again, literally give people a sense of their power back. And it starts a lot of times in the body itself. And I've just seen how that translates throughout so many other realms of your life. So yeah, I'd love to have a, resistance fight club. Let's see. And doesn't have to fight.
Let me know. I don't know if I show up, but I at least help organize it.
Yo, I mean, it's happening, Mark. It's happening. So yeah, it's as someone said, sometimes, when you realize that, like, if there's one thing that has been consistent with me all of my adult life, it's been martial arts is the love of my life. And I will be doing it for as long as I can in some way, shape, or form. I've already committed to that. So
and that's going to be a very, very, very long time.
Inshallah. Yes.
Inshallah. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. You've taught us way more than we expected, way more than we deserved, but we're grateful for you. And everybody, this is just a sample of what you're going to see in Resistance Summer School and what you're going to see in the future beyond this summer from our dear sister, the esteemed journalist, the brilliant voice, the internationalist, Karen Attiah.
Thank you so much, Mark. And thank all you guys for tuning in.
Word. Everybody, that is Night School for tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. I love y'all. And also, y'all, this is the last day of April, which means this is the time to make sure you hit them like buttons. Make sure you hit those subscribe buttons. We really want to get this thing ratcheted up so the internets and all their measures know just how committed you are to seeing Night School spread and making sure that the content reaches every corner of the internet that's possible. Also, family, if you're so inclined, hit that join button and become a member of the channel. That's right. It's the end of the month, and today we could use all of your help in expanding the membership base of this channel. Please hit the join button and pick a bronze membership or higher. If you already have a bronze membership, think about moving to silver or gold. We would love it and we'd be grateful for it. We appreciate you and we love you. Also, if you don't have the means or the desire to make a monthly commitment, make a one-time commitment. Go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. Go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. MLH TV on Cash App, TV MLH on PayPal, MLH TV on Venmo, and MLH at MLHTV.com on Zelle. Y'all see it up there. Y'all know what it is. It's the same thing every day. But I'm asking y'all, family, if you could help us close out this month strong, go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle, and help us pay these bills for Night School. This is work that we do that goes unpaid. There's no contracts. There's no support. There's no financial commitments from corporate media, from big time multinational corporations, from mainstream news outlets. Nobody is out here helping us but us. We do it for us, by us, like we used to say. So please help us out. Go to Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle and drop something in. There's no limit to what it could be. If it's $1, we're grateful. I promise you. Don't be afraid to send $1. If it's $1 million, I mean, really don't be afraid to send it. I mean, like, really don't be afraid to send it. Anything in the middle, we're grateful for. Again, no amount's too big, no amount's too small, but it would be wonderful if everybody listening and watching right now could donate $5. Just $5. If everybody watching right now were to go to Cash App or Venmo or Zelle right now and donate $5 minimum, we would meet all of our financial goals for the month. I'd be able to pay the staff. I'd be able to buy new technology. I'd be able to invest in the studio space. I could do all of it if everyone watching right now were to donate at least $5. Again, it can be more. It certainly can be less. But if everyone watching and listening could do $5 right now, we would be grateful. And if one person out there could donate $100, we'd be grateful. If one person out there could donate $1,000, we'd be grateful. And it would make everything so much better, so much different for us here on the channel. I want to shout out 3 people in particular who showed up and showed out tonight. Jake Lloyd showed up and gifted 5 memberships. I hope y'all grabbed them joints. Janana did the same thing. We're grateful. I appreciate you. And Adrian asked the question, said, will you offer live Zoom for scholarship students? Karen had already sent me a note about that. And the answer, of course, was we'll see in the future. This course obviously is filled. But I know for a fact that Karen does not want money to be a barrier to people getting access to the information. I can't, the platform, when I say we'll see, is about the platform, whether it's Zoom, whether there's another platform or mechanism for getting that information out. We'll find out. We'll see. Yeah, so that's that. There was another comment here that I wanted to pull up. I think it was Coach somebody who had said he asked a question 2 days in a row. I didn't see it the other 2 days, but if you posted a super, just put it in a regular chat box and I'll answer it for you. You don't have to pay again. You don't have to drop it. I don't want your money. I want your support, and I want to support you. It looks like he's left the room, but come back another day, and I promise you I'll answer the question, my brother. Anyway, family, drop something in Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, or Zelle. We appreciate you. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.